Good afternoon. I call to order the Hamilton County Board of County Commissioners staff meeting of April the 20th. Good afternoon, Madam Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And we also have our clerk of the board and our county administrator joining us. It's a beautiful Tuesday afternoon also, so not going to be so nice tomorrow, but we won't complain for sure. I'll move to our first agenda item, which is a parental leave policy. And I believe that Jeff and Frank are going to lead the discussion.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Commissioners. So I'm just going to kick it off briefly here and turn it over to Human Resources Director Frank Spataro. So this item relates to the board's most recent policy agenda and an item that was a part of that policy agenda that included direction for the administration to develop a paid parental leave policy for the board's consideration during the first part of 2021. So I think that policy direction was driven largely by research and studies which have shown multiple benefits to the concept of paid parental leave. First of all, that ensures that people can take the necessary leave and the necessary time for recovery and bonding after the birth of a child to return to the workplace. Studies have shown that paid parental leave is effective in helping to keep women in the workforce after the birth of a child, as well, as opposed to leaving the job market. We've also seen that research showing that the paid parental leave is actually very helpful in terms of supporting early childhood development. Not to mention just the policy aspect of it, that it's a good policy that has been shown in organizations to help promote the effective retention and attraction of a productive workforce. So multiple reasons. I just listed a couple of them there, but why I think the board was interested in promoting this through its policy agenda. So Frank has and his staff have researched the market on this, both locally and nationally. Frank is prepared to walk through where we are right now. We're still finalizing some details on it. We're still working with the prosecutor's office on the policy, but I think we did want to, not too far after the first quarter, get back to the board and let you know where we are with it, so that you can see the policy that we are putting together, get any comments from the board, so that we could bring it back to the board, hopefully in the not too distant future for finalization. So with that, Frank, I'm going to turn it over to you to walk through the policy, at least in terms of where we are right now. And Frank, you may be muted.
Thanks, Jeff, and good afternoon. You have a PowerPoint up that gives a very high-level description of the policy. Actually, parental leave is defined as 12 weeks of leave following birth or adoption, and it's actually segmented into two periods. The first being 8 weeks of paid, either continuous or intermittent parental leave for the biological parent or adoptive parent to be used within 6 months of birth or adoption. And then that's followed by 4 weeks of, and that is paid by the county. And that's then followed by 4 weeks of continuous or intermittent parental leave. During that period, an employee would use their own accrued paid sick leave or vacation. Eligibility for the benefit is our full-time employees as defined on the PowerPoint there, and continuously employed for 12 months, working 1,250 hours or more during that period, which is the same requirement for a person to qualify for family medical leave. Paid parental leave and parental leave would run concurrent with family medical leave, and which would then decrease the amount of family medical leave available to an individual if they needed it at a later time. And this is consistent with other special leaves that we've recently established, such as the sexual violence and domestic abuse leave, which also runs concurrent with a person's FMLA leave. So just wanted to mention the fact that we're not granting additional family medical leave, and this is consistent with the way virtually all of the policies I looked at works when I was putting this together. And then there's a limit on usage of paid parental leave to 2 times during an employee's time with Hamilton County, regardless of any breaks in service. Those are the high-level points, and then there's a couple of additional points that I'd like to cover or mention here. First of all, while an individual is on the paid parental leave, they'll continue to receive all the benefits they're normally entitled to, and they would accrue their normal vacation and sick leave during that period. So there's no suspension of benefits for the individual while they're on the 8 weeks of paid parental leave. And important point here is that in the event that an employee has exhausted their family medical leave, their 12 weeks, and they are and they have a birth or adoption event, for the 8 weeks that they are on paid parental leave, they'll continue to enjoy the same job protections as they would normally have as if they were on family medical leave. I just felt that if we're going to be paying them, it just didn't make sense to try to jeopardize their employment for that period of time. And then the last point that I wanted to mention that's not covered on the PowerPoint is that parental leave and paid parental leave do not apply with regard to the placement of foster children. And this again was quite common in the policies in the majority of the policies that I reviewed. So that's it. Really, in a nutshell, in terms of high level, there's some mechanics and administrative points that will be in the final policy, but those are the highlights. So, any questions?
And Frank, if I could, and I meant to indicate this as we kicked off, but just for folks who may be watching, and to set the stage for this, what Frank has outlined is the leave proposal, and as the board is aware, and as folks who are watching may not be, that currently when someone has to take off for parental leave, they would typically use FMLA to do that, and they would, in order to accrue salary over that time, if they were able, they would be tapping into their paid leave time, vacation, sick time, et cetera. So this would negate the requirement that they do that, because what we wanted to also avoid is that people have to, by going on parental leave, people whittle down their balances to the point where they have no sick vacation balance left, which ultimately hurts them and also hurts the county later on. So I just wanted to make that point clear to folks as well. I should have mentioned that right as we kicked the presentation off, but did not. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions from the board on the proposed policy.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Frank, also. Vice President Reese, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you for this. Really appreciate it. Wanted to ask about the issue of item number 5. You don't have rules where you talk about employees experiencing prenatal complications. Required time off must use their paid sick leave or vacation. So you have to already, I guess, give birth to experience this parental leave policy.
Yes, Commissioner, that's quite common that the paid leave commences either at the birth or the placement of the child for adoption. In fact, I can't remember think of a policy that I looked at that covered any prenatal conditions. It's just not that we can't, but it's just not a common feature of the policies that are out there.
Okay, and what about a mother experiences stillborn child, where they have to bear the child and has a stillborn child, would they qualify for this, or they have to use their paid and sick leave time?
No, stillbirth is covered by the paid leave.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dreehouse.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to both Jeff and Frank for working on this. As you know, this was part of our policy priority agenda last year, and I am really grateful that the administration worked on it diligently, and now we've got something in front of us, because I too believe that this is not only the right thing to do and a good way to treat employees, but I also think it's a recruiting tool as we talk about recruiting people into the county organization, into the county family, and retaining those employees. I think a policy like this goes a long way to kind of changing the narrative about working for the county, that we are welcoming and embracing and celebrating people that are starting families and people that are either adopting or having the children. So I think that this is a really a significant progressive policy that I'm super glad we're doing. Also, I do want to thank the folks at Cradle. They had brought this to my attention after we had put it into the policy agenda. Mike Morosky and Ali Kathman have talked a number of times about this and about the importance of it, not only for government entities, but also for businesses to try to create these parental leave policies to make it easier for employees to manage that really special and stressful time of life. And so I want to thank them too for weighing in. Cradle just had some really great news, by the way, a couple days ago. But this is also something that I know that they're very supportive of and they think will help families. So Madam President, I want to say it's a far cry from when I had kids. I don't remember, I don't know that I got much of anything. I don't remember at all getting paid for that time off. So I just want to say we've come a long way, baby. I mean, here we are, right? So again, thanks to staff for working so hard on this. I'm very proud that we are moving into this space and creating a policy that's really great for families and throughout the county.
Thank you. And Commissioner Dreehouse, the good news from Cradle Cincinnati, is that the reduction in infant mortality?
Yes.
Yeah. That's worth talking about for sure. Maybe we can say a little more on Thursday. I'm just really happy also that we are doing this. So needed. And I just had one question as relates to the limit of the usage is only 2 times during your full employment. And I'm thinking about some people who stay here 25, 30 years, and maybe there's a special circumstance where maybe their younger sister had a tragedy and they ended up, and maybe they've already used their 2 times. And they end up having to take on another challenge or another baby. Is there any way to put in, like, under certain special circumstances that you could be reviewed or considered for another leave?
That's an interesting scenario that you brought up, Commissioner, and it's and I raised it that way because Frank and I were literally just talking earlier this morning about different situations and scenarios as it relates to that particular item. I think the 2 time with the 2 time limitation on the policy was what we saw as kind of a middle ground of where various policies were that we researched. There are some that had 1 all the way up to no limitations. So it's certainly something we can take a look at, especially from the perspective of, are there any other policies out there that provide that kind of unique circumstance exemption as well? So we can certainly take a look at that before we bring a final policy back to the board.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hey, Madam President,
Yes.
can I follow up on that? Because,
Sure.
I'm hearing from my my chief of staff across the hall, who has 7 children, who really would be disadvantaged by that one. I actually meant to ask, I got too excited, I forgot. But yeah, I wondered the same. Why would we cap it at 2? So 2 things come to mind. One is that maybe we shouldn't cap it at 2, but the other one is, I wonder how many people at this moment in time would take advantage of this policy, and that related to the cost. And because I assume that 2 per career is related to cost. So maybe it would be helpful to get an analysis on what the estimates are for the county employee base, so we get a better understanding of whether or not we need a 2-child cap.
Yeah.
I can certainly, for you.
Go ahead, Frank.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said, yes, I could certainly calculate an estimated cost per incident or per birth or adoption.
Or rather, how many employees would we expect to take advantage of the policy is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and we have historical data in the form of FMLA requests that we have on file for the last few years that I can go back and look and see what's the average number of requests for FMLA related to pregnancy.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Appreciate it. No other questions or comments? We'll move to our second item on the agenda. Columbia Township's Community Reinvestment CRA Agreement. I see Harry popped up. Hi, Harry, how are you?
Hello, commissioners.
Are you going to, hi, Clinton. Are
Yeah,
you
hey,
going to
good afternoon.
Are you going to say anything first, Jeff, to lead this off?
No, Madam President, I will just turn it straight over to Harry and Clint. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you, Jeff. We appreciate your time today. As you can see, we have Clint McIntosh with us, and then I think you were introduced to Mel Taylor, also known as Melissa Taylor. She's the administrator for Columbia Township, so she's here as well. If it's okay, I'm going to share my screen and bring up a presentation. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm going to minimize the picture so I can see the screen. So thank you for your time. Before you today, we have a request from Columbia Township for a community investment area. Just for the general public's information, just to remind them of what a CRA or a community reinvestment area is. It's a program that allows us to have a tool to provide real property tax exemptions for incremental increases on new investments. And it's important to point out that this will not impact any existing tax or the existing tax base. It's only on new investments in real property. And so a CRA is a designated area of land that the township asks us to set up to offer these benefits. And finally, it's a tool that we can use to encourage new investment in areas that maybe it's not seeing that investment right now. Today, we have a request from CTR Development, which is a developer for an apartment complex. This apartment complex is a little bit smaller than the last one we brought before you. It's a 27-unit apartment complex. We'll give you more details later. Right now, what you see is a map of Columbia Township. If you can, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but we're talking about this part down here on Wooster Pike.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, and so this is the US 50 area of Columbia Township. As we all know, they're broken up into many different islands all over the county, but this is the area that we're talking about today. Back in 2009, Columbia Township asked us to establish the CRA, and since then they've expanded it to include much of the township, and primarily because they saw it as a good tool to not only rehabilitate and renovate older housing stock from the 1900s to the 1950s, but also to get investors and businesses to invest in aging commercial areas in their community. So the area that we're talking about today, as I said, is along Wooster Pike. If you can see my arrow, the red dot is the area that we're talking about. As you can see, there's a very wooded area next to it. This is a hillside that comes down to Wooster Pike. And then this area right here was a single family home that went on the market for sale. And the developer bought that to put this new apartment complex in here. Also, you can see that there's a lot of commercial around this area that they hope these new residents will attend. You can't see it right now, but I'll show you a little bit later. There's a creek that comes down along here as well. So first thing I think to point out is that the taxes that are collected on this site will, even with the abatement that we're requesting, will increase from $7,000 to $40,000. So on this land and in this property, even with the tax incentive, if it is approved, the taxes will go up by more than 5 times. As I pointed out, it's a 27-unit apartment complex. They will have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, and they will also have some flats and townhome style units. CTR is the developer, and they requested the incentive because they feel it's necessary to make the project affordable for them. This is probably a good point in the conversation to stop and talk about Hamilton County in general. As you know, commissioners, we have what they call a built-out county, which means that a lot of our prime land has been developed. A lot of the land that is easier to develop has already been developed. And if we do have someone coming for a project on a piece of land, there are often impediments to the development of the site. And so that is true in this case as well. As you can see at the next bullet point, there's topography issues. As I showed on the map, it's a steep hillside that comes down to this property. So they are going to need to build retaining walls on the northern, eastern, and southern lines of the property. They also are going to have to build a commercially rated bridge. As I mentioned, there's a creek that surrounds the property, so they have to build a bridge in order for fire trucks and for ambulances and the police to be able to get to the apartment complex, and for safety reasons. And they originally had a bridge on the property, but because it was not commercially rated, they were told that they had to build a new bridge. So that was an unforeseen cost that came along with this project. Also, they have downsized the size of the project because of the additional cost from 32 units to 27 units, and also because of the the bridge and the retaining walls. This is a concept drawing of the site. As you know, we pointed out all the hillside comes down to here. This is the creek along the western side of the property, and this is the bridge that they will be building, and this is where the units are. As I said, they would have to build retaining walls on the southern, eastern, and northern sides of the property to protect it from the hillside. The developer is also including LEED certification into the property, so there will be energy efficiency as a result of this project. Back in 2017, Columbia Township did a comprehensive plan for the community, and for this site, this project is consistent with what they wanted planned for this site, and also it provides a walkable and vibrancy for the area by building in new housing and creating new opportunities for the residents in terms of residential. The township obviously supports the abatement. They've requested this abatement, and we have informed the school districts of the proposed project. As you can see at the bottom, they are requesting 50% tax exemption for 15 years, and the total investment is about $3.44 million. And now we would be happy to answer and open it up for your questions.
Thank you so much, Harry. I have one question, but I'll allow my colleagues first. Vice President Reese.
Thank you. I just have one question. I wanted to go back to the one point that you made. You said it doesn't affect surrounding properties. Can you?
I'm not sure what I said that sounded like that. The retaining walls are being built so that the hillside will not encroach upon the development. I think maybe what I said was that this development will hopefully support the surrounding businesses. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe I want to understand. I want to go back on this component. Will this affect, I know you said the school districts have been notified. How will this affect the existing property owners? You know, one of the issues is that new developments, we come in with tax abatements, and unfortunately, you know, certainly there needs to be some work at the state, but we've got people, seniors and people right now struggling to pay, you know, their property taxes, and assessments are going up, and to them, their property taxes are going up. We put new development that have tax abatements on it. So I just wanted to bring this up as we're moving forward, people that are not selling but staying, being able to stay affordable as we're all looking at, how do we create affordable housing? We're trying to keep people can, be able to afford to stay in their homes and not have the taxes drive them out when new development comes in that helps the property values. But if you stay around, it certainly brings your property rates up. And I thought you had mentioned something like it wouldn't impact surrounding properties. Maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I referred to in terms of that, but there are, in terms of surrounding properties, there are no close by properties that would be impacted by the development in terms of physically. There was one single family home that was put on for sale and the developer bought it. And so
Harry,
there's no.
Harry, it may help to talk a little bit about it, whether it's yourself or Melissa, to talk a little bit about the nature of that corridor itself, how much is residential versus commercial. I think, and I don't want to speak for the commissioner, but I think the concern is primarily, Commissioner, around potential impact on residential property values.
Yeah, just as a matter of, policy in general, we definitely have a concern about people being able to hold on to the properties that they have while we're certainly trying to redevelop, underdeveloped areas in those communities. So I just wanted to make sure, if you talk about the Marymount School District and Great Oak School District, we're notified. Someone's paying the taxes. So I'm just trying to figure out how that impacts people that are already there.
Mel, you might be more familiar with the area, but my feeling is that it's not, there are not a lot of lower income properties around there, but I'll let you.
Yeah, not low income. Let me go back. I'm not talking about low income properties. I'm talking about families, middle-class families, upper-class families, whoever, people who own a home, own property. The taxes keep going up. And then new development comes in and we give abatements to those. They pay no taxes for so many years, but the people who live there, who've been there for years, their taxes are going up. And I'm hearing a lot of complaints by that. And I know, as a board, we use the word affordable housing, but I think it has multiple meanings. We're not talking about low income families. I'm talking about people trying to, make it in this COVID environment and hold on to the property they have. So it's a great market if you want to sell. It's a terrible market if you're trying to hold on to your property. And
the only thing I'll say before Melissa jumps in is that I think as a county, we have to promote both types of development and make sure that we have new energy and new vibrancy added to our county, because we always want to reinvent our communities and be contemporary and have affordable, have all types of properties available. But I agree with you that we also need to help with affordable housing and for middle income types of housing. So we have to balance when we do give these incentives, and we shouldn't give them out if they're not necessary. And we always try to be very judicious in the way that we propose these. I should point out that Columbia Township, the majority of their revenue comes from real property taxes. And so if they did not feel like this was important, I don't think they would have proposed it. But Commissioner Reese, I agree with you that we have to make sure that we are creating a county that supports and promotes both types of development. And
that's my point, since we have to be the ones that vote on this. I just want to make sure as I'm voting on it that I am doing it in a balanced way, not against redevelopment. I think everyone wants new development, redevelopment, that's great. But you're right, at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not running out the people who have been here, who do have their homes and are the ones that's paying the brunt of the bill. So that's all. I just wanted to find out where this, you showed me a map, but when you said it wouldn't impact, that was on your second slide. I just thought, okay, wow, can you elaborate on it more? But maybe Mel can tell us more about the area if it won't be impacting homeowners, tax rates there.
So, Madam Commissioners, I would like to say before I start, when Commissioner Driehaus said we've come a long way, baby, I have been an economic developer in city management for 35 plus years. I also have been in national consulting, advising communities, counties all across the United States for how to build revenue streams to support the programs that are important to them. And in my career, I have never presented to a board of 3 female anything, commissioners, trustees, anything. And so not only have we come a long way, and we should, and it's because our voices are stronger and more present in top echelons of not only companies but government, that we're making policy that reflects more real life. And so I just wanted to say that this is a first for me in a very long career. And so congratulations to all of you. You lift all of us. I think what's more important of a conversation here is that this is not an incentive per se. When you do the numbers, this is a public-private partnership, which is actually called for in the comp plan to attract new people to Hamilton County and specifically to Columbia Township. Like you, I need more people and I need more money. I've had 4 decades of population loss, as has the county. That has stabilized since 2010. And the really amazing thing about this project is that infill development is important because it takes non-performing properties and underperforming properties and puts them into a higher productive use, which means higher revenues to the community and to the county. And this is a commercial district. We have very little housing in the area. And this development, because of the difficulties Harry mentioned in his presentation, that when we have projects now, Columbia is a very old community. We're very urban. We have homes that date back. We wrap around Madisonville. We go as far over as Gulf Manor. We stretch across a number of different of your communities, and our housing stock is not diverse. Close to 90% of my housing is single family homes. People cannot find, unless they can afford to buy or rent a single family home. We do not have sufficient multifamily housing here, which is very important for all demographics, affordable or otherwise. But what's important about the numbers for this project, and the reason I call this a public-private partnership instead of an incentive, the program is an incentive, but the numbers work out that because of the constraints on the site, the hill, the creek that goes to the river, a bridge, shared use paths, sidewalks, requirements from Hamilton County Storm, Hamilton County Planning and Zoning, and others. The new value so the existing value when a home was there. So this is the beauty of redevelopment. We had one home on an 1.5 acres in prime commercial corridor. This across the street is 50 West, but the only really major investments in many years has been 50 West. This property is surrounded by 2 junkyards, contaminated properties, a bus depot. You can't see it from the aerial, but when you are walking this area is in need of redevelopment. And so this project is going to take the tax coffers. Other people aren't going to be paying the way for this project once the project is completed, when it has the tax incentive, because this project is going to take the former homeowner paid $612 a month in taxes to all taxing entities, me, you, everyone else. This project, even with the tax abatement, will be paying close to $5,000 a month. So with this new development, we are bringing in new money and others are not paying for the gap. The funding, when you look at the cost to develop this property, amortized over the term of the tax abatement, it's break even for the developer. So we are partnering with him to make this project possible so that he can go from a house that he owns that generates $612 a month to a property that will host 27 families in a diverse housing stock and generate close to $5,000 a month, even with the CRA in place.
Thank you. Thank you, Mel. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dreehouse.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mel. My question was going to be why this area, how is it challenging to build there? You've just now answered that question, so I appreciate. I especially like your description of Columbia Township which is very hard to describe. So you did a fine job of that too. And you mentioned 50 West, which is one of my favorite places. So yeah, no, I think it's great. I think you've highlighted for us the need for this kind of generally in a township that doesn't have much of it, and in a place where not much is happening. So I am happy for that description. So thank you for answering the questions.
May I also add to Vice President Reese's question specifically? Columbia Township has only one active CRA, commercial CRA. It's in this area as well. Everything on the south side of US 50 tends to want to slide down into the Little Miami. And so we had a shopping center, which is really important to the local neighborhood. It has a hardware store, a number of restaurants, a number of other services. And it was literally sliding down the hill toward the river. And we had a developer come in who agreed to stabilize this hillside and invested millions of dollars into it. And so that's our only active commercial CRA. So we are not, as Harry said, we do not take these requests lightly, but we view this as an investment so that we're going to get a greater return on the investments that we have made in the corridor and that our larger employers in the corridor have made as well. So this would, and that one expires, I think, in just a few years. So this would only be our second, and after a few years, it would be our only one. So we are not in that category of creating a burden for the county. I believe that, I don't know if, think that HCDC may have shared stats. I know I'm an economic developer by trade, so Harry is definitely a peer, but townships are not, and particularly not Columbia Township, we are not the part of the county that are generating the tax exemptions at all.
And Mel, as you're saying, Mel, I think I have told the commissioners before that the townships are 3% of the CRA tax abatements in Hamilton County. So a very small percentage. And as you were pointing out, thank you for pointing that out, the development that you just mentioned that was sliding down into the river, that was in the presentation that we gave you commissioners a while back when we were going over how CRAs work, and we highlighted that project. So you might remember that.
Okay, thank you. I just had another question. I think it was also on the second slide, but as it relates to the topography of that area, and you're talking about the creek, it was not real clear to me how far the creek goes, because as they are going to build retaining walls, of course, they can't do that in isolation. In other words, if you retain the water, it's going somewhere. And even though you indicated that most of the businesses are commercial, I just wondered about the impact of them surrounding their area and how that may impact in an environmental way to those other businesses. So how far does the creek go down?
So the creek runs along Walton. The Walton Creek runs along Walton Creek Road, which is the road that comes from the north and connects at US 50. The creek runs under US 50 and drains into the Little Miami. So they are not permitted. We've been working with Hamilton County Stormwater, Hamilton County Planning and Zoning, Hamilton County Engineer's Office. They are not permitted to touch the creek. In fact, Hamilton County Stormwater asked, and the developer agreed to move to shrink the footprint of the development even more. He originally was in the 30 units and low 30s and dropped it to 27 because they asked for him to move it even farther than the regs, the floodway regs require back, just to be extra sure. And so he is going to be required to build a new commercial bridge to span the creek for certain flood conditions. And it has to be commercially rated for fire and EMS and those types of vehicles. And so he is not permitted to build in or near the creek. And the retaining wall is on the northeast side of the property, and the creek is on the west. So he will not be allowed to be in the creek at all.
So your professional opinion then is that as it relates to the creek, even with all those modifications, excuse me, that the water or the creek will not impact those other businesses that are down farther?
No, he is required actually to have on-site storm detention. He's not even allowed to discharge into the creek. He has to build an underground storm detention system.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Madam President, if
Yes.
I could just briefly, just for a comprehensive look here from the county's perspective, I believe on April 15th, this matter also went before the Rural Zoning Commission to approve of the zoning map amendment to allow for the raising of the home and the amendment of the zoning map from residence to planned residence. And so that zone change, which was approved by the Zoning Commission, should be coming forward to the board sometime in May. I'm sorry, yes, in May as well. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that. So when you see something additional on this, you can connect the two.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, everyone. I appreciate all the information. Look forward to seeing you guys again.
Thank you,
Okay?
Commissioners.
Thanks. Our next item on the agenda is the Department of Reentry update. Trina Jackson is here. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? It's good
Doing
to see
great.
everyone. Yeah, thank you, commissioners. I almost say good morning. It's kind of been going so fast today. Yeah, so thank you for this opportunity to actually share the work that we've been engaged in with each of you, as well as the broader community. So I'm going to share my screen really quick here. Okay, so our office, each year, we kind of start our 12 months out with a planning process. And, we use that planning process to make sure that we are focusing on the right things for the year. And this year we did a little bit deeper dive into, what should we be focusing on as an organization, but also we took like a 2-day abbreviated strategic planning process to kind of look at, what are the skills that we bring to the table? What are our priorities? But also, why do we do this work, right? And so during that first session, we identified why we do the work that we do. And, our why really represents who we are and what we do. And so our collective statement here is that we believe people deserve multiple opportunities to break the cycle of incarceration by building community connections and educating those around us on the importance of reentry. And so when we looked at our personal values and whether they align with the values of the organization, we were able to create this why. And so the next thought is, well, who is our team, right? And so we have 4 reentry coordinators and 2 lead case managers. And the lead case managers are part of this law enforcement assistant diversion initiative, which is part of our office. And so I do have some of our staff, not all of our staff, but some of our staff on the call today, if they would take their camera, put their camera on. Let's see who, I can't see everybody right now. So, okay, I think I have them all. So I have 2 reentry coordinators. I have Denise Charles, if you can raise your hand, Denise. She's been with the office probably before I started, actually, and she's very seasoned in this work. Charles, Charles Hemphill, and he's very seasoned in case management and things like that. A lot of work with vulnerable populations. Denise is also very seasoned in that case management, workforce development, working with vulnerable populations. We also have Sarah Harrison. She's our administrative assistant, and she keeps me straight. But she has a great deal of experience, with law enforcement and office administration. We have Kelsey Richardson, who is our our reentry coordinator, lead case manager. I'm getting all my people mixed up here. But Kelsey actually works on the lead initiative. She's our screening and outreach coordinator. And so, if I look at kind of the list here of the expertise that people bring to this work, I said there's case management, there's coordination of services and youth services and things like that. But we all agree that, people in our community, with a conviction in their background should be afforded the opportunity to break that cycle of incarceration. Thank you all so much for introducing yourselves. Let's see. So as part of that conversation we had at the beginning of the year, we really talked about and delve into what are our priorities as an organization. What should we be working on? And, of course, we identified outreach, but we also identified strategies or evidence-based practices that reduce recidivism in Hamilton County. So, research tells us that housing, education, and training, as well as pre-release planning, all reduce recidivism. And that's where we focused our time and our energy when it comes to our programs. So if I go back up to the whole idea of outreach, our office provides this direct coordination of care to any returning citizen here in Hamilton County. Our role really is to connect them to the resources in the community so that they can either become stable or maintain their stability. We've also engaged in or created this one-stop resource center. And the goal of that, it is a form of outreach, but it's really not only specific to returning citizens. It's offered to everyone in the Hamilton County area. And the goal of that is to eliminate these barriers to accessing supportive services by convening multiple providers in one location on the final Friday of every month. So one thing I want to really bring to your attention is the uniqueness of the planning team that created this one stop. It launched in 2019, and the planning team, the people that were at the table, included representatives from Department of Corrections, our Sheriff's Department, our Veteran Services, Hamilton County ARC, and Interact for Health. And so all of us came together to create this opportunity for men and women in Hamilton County to, come to one location on the final Friday of every month and get receive, assistance with things like housing and healthcare and mental health care. And it's not a resource fair in the traditional sense. We are asking all of our providers to provide a service. So, they're not, people aren't picking up information and then just kind of going along and learning more. They're scheduling appointments, starting assessments. We've had multiple people go directly to treatment. And so it's very tangible resources that we're providing through the One Stop. The other outreach initiative that we're engaged in is a regional voter education initiative. And that is a partnership with reentry offices in Hamilton, Montgomery, Cuyahoga counties, Franklin County, as well as Spectrum and retired Judge Nadine Allen. And the goal there is to just educate men and women who are returning citizens on their rights to vote, whether they can register to vote. It's a powerful tool to be civically engaged. And so, this initiative, we launched it about a month ago, and those ads are airing on Spectrum as well as on iHeartRadio and Radio One. So, that's something that we feel really strongly about when it comes to, our clients being able to participate in civic activities. The next thing I want to talk about and, kind of go back to are those evidence-based practices that reduce recidivism. Stable housing has been shown to reduce recidivism. And we have a partnership with CMHA. And the goal of that is to prepare returning citizens to be renters through CMHA. It launched in 2019, so the program is slow kind of to get off the ground because of COVID, really. The first year we were able to have at least 2 people in the program, but once COVID hit, things really slowed down. But we are also are becoming part of that shelter diversion initiative through strategies to end homelessness. We have a lot of clients who are couch surfing, to be honest, and they may be on their final couch. And so that final couch, once that's come to an end, they may be in a shelter. And so having an opportunity to be a part of the Shelter Diversion Initiative is a real resource to our clients. As far as education and training, we started a partnership with Cincinnati State and River City Correctional in 2018. And the goal of that is to prepare women who are incarcerated at River City, prepare them and help them get their certificate in supply chain logistics while they're incarcerated. And so, I can say that at the county level, these types of programs, preparing people for employment in this manner, it doesn't happen very often, and Hamilton County is one of the counties that is offering something like that locally. In regards to pre-release planning, we all need a plan. We all need to know what we're doing next, and that it helps us, in understanding where we need support and what we have to bring to the table to help us get to where we need to go and want to go. And so, whether you're incarcerated or not, we need a plan. So pre-release planning in the Justice Center, it started in 2017. We have a pod under normal circumstances. We would be operating that pod daily. It's a pod for 16 men, and the core component is cognitive behavior intervention. And so our staff offers that training to participants in the pod. And so, that's been something that we partnered with the Sheriff's Office to actually create that pod. Let's see. So, the other thing that I want to discuss really is, how do we measure our impact? And so we created a dashboard to be able to understand, all of our energies and our resources, where are they going into and why, and, what's the impact to the community? And so we kind of broke it down into these different categories that we measure, and we look at client engagement, and we break it down into care coordination and material resources that we provide. We also look at the program activity and the outreach. So in 2019, we were able to support 1,400 clients, and we provided material resources such as allowances for recovery housing, birth certificate, vouchers, bus tickets, and things like that to 378 people. Our reentry pod, which formerly was called the exit pod, but we do refer to it now as a reentry pod. We had a 15% recidivism rate, and we were able to come to that point by measuring and tracking our clients' activities over 12 months. So we're looking at whether or not someone has been convicted of a new offense within 12 months after being released from the Justice Center. And so I can say that 15% of those released from the pod, that's our recidivism rate. And so if we compare that to that of the county, which is about 35% recidivism, the model is working. The Preparing Incarcerated Women for Sustainable Careers, we had a 6% recidivism rate. We have 4 cohorts of women actually complete that program. And it's a private-public partnership. The funding for that was provided when it started, and I think over the course of 2 years, 18 and 19, from PNC National. So PNC Foundation actually provided that funding, as well as Ohio Means Jobs, and of course the county. So one of the things that I wanted to also mention when it comes to outreach, in 2019, there were some adjustments made to the acceptable documents for obtaining your ID. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was a time when, some people had to produce their marriage records just to get their license and things like that. And so it became a challenge specifically for our clients, because the acceptable list of documents that you could present to prove your identity typically included the medical record. Well, that was removed in 2019, and that was a challenge for our clients. And so we appealed to the state to restore that document to that list of, or acceptable list of documents, and they did so. So that's something that we're, pretty proud to say that we actually helped facilitate that change. So if I look at 2020, because of COVID, looking at our impacts, we had to make some adjustments on how we
Trina.
measure. Oh, I'm sorry. Mhm.
I'm sorry to interrupt and interject, but Commissioner Dreehouse is leaving. And I know she was here when everything started, and I just didn't know if she had a couple comments she wanted to make before she left out.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem. No problem.
I just put in the chat, I am so sorry that I have to leave this meeting, Trina, especially during your presentation. I just put great job. You guys are doing tremendous work. It's a huge benefit to the county. I'm super proud of everything that you're doing, and glad that HCR can be a partner. So thank you, Madam President, for interjecting, and I am going to pop off.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Trina.
No problem. Let's see, I did want to kind of look at 2020 really quick. So as we measure our impact in 2020, because of COVID, we adjusted how we tracked our client engagement, right? And so we started measuring the number of contacts that we have with the client, because, our, activity, people coming into our office was limited to about 692, right? But because of the fact that we were talking with people and connecting with them via phone, there were multiple touches that we had. And so, that resulted in like 2,024 clients served because of those multiple touches too. So we were able also to continue providing material resources to help people with, getting their IDs and vouchers for recovery housing, things like that. As far as programming, we did have people who were participants who were released from the pod, and then we were able to track them for those 12 months up into 2020 or part of 2020. And when you look at the recidivism rate, it improved. So we had about a 12% recidivism rate for those who had been released for 12 months as of 2020. Of course, we had to suspend a number of our programs, specifically the One Stop, as well as the program we had for incarcerated women. And, the family unification, I think I indicated earlier, has a slower start because of the pandemic. So, one of the things though that I definitely wanted to bring to your attention is, regardless of the pandemic, we were able to earn award from NACO, the National Association of County Organizations. We earned an award for our reentry pod. It was for innovation. So that's something that's exciting to us as well. Thank you. Thank you. And we also received a grant from Greater Cincinnati Foundation to provide emergency supports for our clients. So, the pandemic has presented a challenge, but I applaud our staff for, every adjustment and non-traditional type of, challenge and non-traditional response that we've had to make sure we continue to support our clients in spite of, working remotely and things like that. Yeah. So one of the other things I did not get a chance to mention yet, but is the law enforcement assisted diversion, which is the LEAD initiative. That was added to our work last year. It launched in July, actually added to our office in 2019. And so it launched in July of 2020. And the goal of that is to divert anyone with mental illness, chronic mental illness, addiction, or homelessness from the criminal justice system. And so, like I said, it launched in July. Our partner is the City of Cincinnati, Norwood, as well as Colerain. And so in order for this program to work, the diversions and the social contacts all the referrals have to come from law enforcement. And, Because of COVID, it did get a slower start, but it's building momentum, and we have, a significant number of clients that we're serving right now. So as far as looking towards 2020, or where we are right now and what we plan to continue working on, we want to relaunch our jail-based programming. Sorry about that. Relaunch our jail-based programming, which is, our pre-release planning at the Justice Center, our work with women at River City. The One Stop will be relaunched in May, the final Friday of May. We will start that up again at the Justice Center. And, it started with a different administration, but Charmaine McGuffey is very engaged in this work and very supportive of it. We'll continue to build on our LEAD initiative and our regional education initiative, or voter education initiative. And the last thing I want to do is just kind of show a video, and I think Bridget has that video. It just kind of gives you an even better visual of the work that we've been engaged in. Bridget?
One second. Here we. I'm going to stop your sharing.
I got a job. I'm on time for my job.
Dennis Rose and Chris Nipper are former inmates. They say Hamilton County's reentry program transformed their lives.
Being able to come through this and, restoring my family, being able to see my family back, like I lost my kids and everything.
They transferred me over to the reentry pod, which is where I started to feel hope.
They say they used to spend their time in jail learning how to be better criminals.
Because when I go to jail, that's an opportunity for me to meet new drug dealers.
So I got a job in the kitchen where my stealing continued. We were stealing officers' food. We had kind of planned a crime spree. That was prior to me moving to the reentry pod.
The reentry pod changed everything for Chris and Dennis.
We want to see everybody succeed.
This is where they were coached on how to think and act differently.
Sometimes you got to ask yourself, I'm hurting so bad, who do I talk to get this out of my system? Instead of masking it with drugs and alcohol.
And that's what started the process of me changing my life.
The jail's overcrowded. This jail was designed for 840-something prisoners. Well, our daily population here is 1,500. We've got to do things differently. We can't just keep doing this. The Office of Reentry is one of the programs that we think will make it a difference in Hamilton County.
Reentry has added a one-stop resource center in the jail lobby once a month on Final Friday.
You can get a library card here, okay? You can get help with your driver's license. We have Brightview here. We have Talbot House here. We have all the providers that actually provide treatment.
We've helped over 250 people so far.
Trina Jackson leads the reentry program and knows the most pressing need.
Over 50% of the people that take advantage of the One Stop actually are looking for housing.
Visitors include Hamilton County judges like Ethna Cooper and Terry Nestor.
Terry Nestor, I'm a judge in Common Pleas.
He says housing is the main hurdle for people in his courtroom.
Judge, the state is concerned that Mr. Enderle doesn't have stable housing.
If you can, visit the reentry program today in the Justice Center in the jail. It's on the first floor. It goes from 10 till 2, where they have a variety of different programs for housing, addiction, and for mental health issues.
Chris and Dennis come here to connect with returning citizens like Jim. He came through the reentry pod and was just released on probation.
We both just celebrated 2 years clean. You know what I mean? We fill our lives with meetings. You know what I mean? NA's helped save our lives with all these people that reentry hooked us up with.
Both can help Jim find housing. Chris manages a sober living house in Lower Price Hill. Dennis runs one in the West End.
How was your week?
It was good.
Good?
What we do, check-in?
Yep, check-in, man. We're going to do our weekly check-in, man.
He helps residents stay focused.
So my name is Joey and I'm an addict.
And Joey.
We follow them for 12 months when they're released. And The recidivism rate is really good. It's about a 12% recidivism rate compared to Hamilton County overall, which is like 33-35%.
This reentry program saves taxpayers millions of dollars.
We know that it costs $26,000 to house someone here in the Justice Center for a year.
So let's do the math. Take 147 inmates tracked through reentry, multiplied by 26,000 in saved jail costs for $3.8 million saved, minus $400,000 a year to run the reentry program equals $3.4 million a year in total taxpayer savings. And this program saves lives.
Life's pretty amazing. I have reconstructed the bridges that I burnt down. I have a wonderful relationship with my ex-wife, which is pretty much unheard of nowadays. I can go over and see the kids whenever I want.
Over the summer, you know, like I got to enjoy a lot of time with my kids. Went to the pool, go to Brookville, go hang out at the lake before I took all that stuff for granted.
Plans are underway to expand the reentry pod from 16 to 48 beds. That will triple the savings for taxpayers and triple the success stories like Dennis and Chris.
So that's all I have today. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much. I'm really just overwhelmed. I'll say a couple words. I'll allow our Vice President, Alicia Reese, if you had any comments or questions.
Oh, thank you, Madam President. Were you going to say your words first or after?
No, I'll wait for you. Uh-huh.
Okay, great. Thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it. Certainly reentry is something very important to me, and I've had a lot of work in this area, even going back to, at that time, he was Congressman Rob Portman, and it was the late Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones when they sponsored the first ever Second Chance Act in the United States, which at that time, we hosted a town hall in the West End for reentry. It wasn't called reentry then, it was called ex-offender. And did a lot of work, and it ended up being at the Community Action Agency, the first reentry office that we sponsored over there. And after that, then I got a chance to be a state representative and to help fund the first funding so we could have county reentry offices. And actually the first office here, I believe it was Commissioner Hartman was here. And also Deanna Hoskins was our first reentry director. And so I did a lot of work with her. And as a president of the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus, we hosted an event with the state prison system here in Hamilton County at New Prospect Baptist Church, which was the first one-stop. And my goal was to have a one-stop that would be centrally located on a permanent basis where people could come, because we connected a lot of people to jobs. So I did a lot of research and of course a lot of work in this area, and certainly it's a very complex situation for people who try to reenter the force. So I just had a couple questions. First of all, thank you for your presentation. Great job. And I know it's a lot of focus has shifted on the addiction issues, right? At the State House, certainly diversion programs started to become more unlike it was during the crack epidemic. We were locking everyone up when we had a crack cocaine situation. And a lot of Black and brown people were locked up versus getting diversion and getting help. And so I know that this program, from what you were showing me, we're doing a lot with the addiction component. I wanted to find out, what are we doing as it relates to people that are, because we had sentencing reform at the state level. So we have a lot of people who were returning to various counties, and just wanted to find out, what are we doing with that? I see what we're doing with the across the street at the local jail, but for people that are coming home because of sentencing reform, et cetera, or they've done their time. What are we doing with them? Because I do know that, having something on your record, a felony, it becomes a lifetime sentence of not being able to get a job or to get housing. And if you can't do those two things, it then sends you back into the world that you were trying to get out of.
Right. That's a great question. Thank you, Commissioner. We, through that coordination of care, are able to support returning citizens that, maybe they're not on probation. Of course, they're, not incarcerated. They've been in the community for, short period of time, long period of time. And a lot of times their primary need is housing. And so, of course, we know that, Hamilton County is in a deficit in regards to the number of affordable housing units that are available to returning citizens, because, if you look at the level of income of several returning citizens, I would say a significant number, their income doesn't match the whole criteria for affordable housing. And so we're definitely in need of more housing resources. And that's something that we have to work through every day to try to support these individuals. We also have employment partners that we work with. We like to make sure people are prepared for employment. And so, we don't ever want to set anybody up for failure. We want to make sure that we help prepare them to be successful for sustainable employment. And so all the coaching that we provide people, on a daily basis is how we support people who are already in the community, connecting them to these different resources, because, there's a knowledge barrier, for anyone in Hamilton County. I think, there's so many resources. Hamilton County is resource rich, right? But it's a matter of knowing how to access those resources is sometimes the biggest challenge. And so that's where we are able to play a role in connecting people, anyone, to those type of resources so that they can be successful.
Yeah, Madam President, and thank you for that. One of the things that I'm looking for, I'm really big on ROI, return on investment, and results driven. And a lot of times we get programs, not just this program, but a lot of programs, they start off really nimble. And then when they become more popular, they turn into more like a PR type of thing. And I just want to make sure, because when people come out, they have all these dreams inside that I'm going to change. And when I get there, then when they leave out, they actually get a brown paper bag and say, good luck with that. And everything begins to kind of shatter. Like you said, can't find housing, can't find a job. We've gotten, get rid of the check the box, at the state, we got rid of those kind of things. But I would love to, because as we're putting together policy, we're going to be dealing with housing as a holistic piece. We would need to have that data. If housing is an issue, I want to know how many people came home, how many people did we help, how many people got jobs, how many people got housing, if they didn't get it, what was the barriers? Because, that makes a major difference. The other thing I would like to know is during COVID, one of the things that happened was something that I think some people are talking about when they say that non-violent offenders shouldn't be, always, locked up only. First time non-violent, and we saw that because of COVID, all of a sudden the population went down. Where did those people go? Have we tracked those people? Have we helped those people? Maybe you have, but those are the kinds of numbers that I want to be able to see. What did we do? Those are the things that I would, we did a lot with a little when we first started. Jeff, you may remember this. I think you were here, I'm not sure. But the Paul Brown Stadium, for example, I think we did some kind of partnership with Reentry and Paul Brown Stadium, and Reentry folks were able to do the seats. It was some kind of contract. They could get training and get paid and could do the seats or something, I believe. It was those kind of innovative type of things, because if you can't make a living and you don't have anywhere to live, it's going to be really tough for you. So those are the things that I guess, and if we have a housing problem, which we know we do, Madam President, but having the data, because you've got the data, you know how many people are being sent home because they notify the counties. You know how many people coming out the local jail. We may, as we're looking at our housing, what we're doing with housing and all that, that needs to be on the table as well when we're doing these type of policies. But the job piece, I'm very interested in. Are we really connecting people to work? And then secondly, I do want to know what happened with COVID. Those people were let out. The jail population went down. We should have a list of who they are and what did we do with them? And then Jeff, looking at things that, we were just looking at inclusion with the stadium upkeep, what type of programs we can do that we did then, which I thought was great, where reentry was partnering with the stadium. And, we kind of saw our money, we did seats, but then the seats were people who were hired, were people who were reentry, and then they were connected with contractors. Now they got a skill set, now they got something on their resume. And it kind of, a way that we could turn the dollar a couple different times. So anyway, Madam President, those are some of the things. I'm excited of the work Director Jackson is and her team is doing with reentry. And I just like to get those numbers and data because all of us all the time, we run into people, family, other people who have family members, and they'll say, hey, do you know of anyone who's hiring someone who has a record in their past and has been, on the straight and narrow for years but can't get a job? Do you know anyone where they could at least get an interview? Do you know where they can go and get help to get housing? And certainly reentry is the place that we would be sending them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to comment, Trina?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. I will definitely work to get this information, this data to you. One of the things I do want to mention to you is a conversation I had with Department of Corrections today, actually, about preparing returning citizens for the new labor markets, because the labor markets are changing, right? They're more focused on technical type positions, manufacturing, and that's something that, we're definitely having a conversation about. How do we prepare, our people for the new markets when the benefits go away? Are they prepared to re-enter the labor market as it stands? So thank you. We will definitely get that information to you.
Madam President, can I also add, if they can let us know about that? We had started a CDL program. I don't know if it's still going. We had a CDL program and another program, I believe Aramark had, when they could go in, when they're inside, they would get this training and then come out. And I know we got Cincinnati Cooks and some others, but when they came out, they were ready to go in to these different positions if they had a partnership. And I know a lot of our facilities, I'm not sure if the stadiums still have it, but we have, I think Aramark, we have these type of partnerships. But I know that maybe there may be something there. CDL was another program. We need more people with CDL licenses, and they had a CDL program that they were doing with the Department of Corrections that we might be able to partner with. And then my last thing is barbers. One of the things we had an issue with, barbers could get training to be a barber. The issue was if you got out before your training was over, you would then have to start all over again from the beginning to try to be a barber. So maybe there's some creative partnerships that we could have there that help people, when they're in their training and when they're out, they're able to, come into some opportunity to be able to be productive citizens and save us money. Because like you said, it saves us money if people are not in jail, but they're out with a job and can pay taxes. So just wanted to put that on the table too, Madam President.
Thank you. And she's very passionate about it, and I am too. There are just not enough words to say. My thanks and appreciation to the staff, and also Trina for what you're doing to lead the staff. I was looking at your annual report and I see direct services. You've served over 2,000 people, some remotely, and that's awesome. Your numbers continue to grow. More people continue to find out about what you guys are doing. it was mentioned earlier, Vice President Reese mentioned about Deanna Hoskins, who's known nationally for her work with reentry. And I remember going to one of her job fairs a few years ago before she left here, and I was a speaker there. But there was a gentleman there that was just so studious, so energetic. He just had so many dreams. And so during the break, he did not take the break. He was just kind of working on his resume. And I told him, I was a village manager at Lincoln Heights. I said, you come see me. And he came the same day. And I took a chance on him. He was our best maintenance worker there. So we all have to take a chance on these people that want more. They're just like us. They just had a bad time or made a bad decision. They have gifts and talents, and they're so creative. And we just got to have people to believe in them so they can believe in themselves. And of course, as you were saying, housing is a major issue. My major concern with this reentry is, yeah, they get their jobs, they're doing well, they're feeling good, they're making their own money. And then child support comes and takes the majority of your money. Oh, I am an advocate for child support. But what can we do to help those who have fallen behind, sometimes no fault of their own, or that are trying to push forward? And when I say, what can we do? I'm just wondering about the county. What can we do to give them a step up as it relates to child support? So when they make their money, I've known plenty of people that have said, well, what's the sense in working? Because they're going to take all my money. Well, the children need their money. But what can we do as a county for those that are trying to move forward and they have shown that they want to have a different life? And so that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother issue that we have to look at. But I know people directly and indirectly that are in the middle of this reentry process. And so I just, once again, thank you all for what you do, and whatever the board can do to help you, we certainly would be willing to do that.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I appreciate it.
So welcome.
And Madam President, if I could just very, very briefly, just to follow up on what Vice President Reese had indicated earlier, I think what she was referring to was a job training public works project that we had down at Great American Ballpark, where we had we had a defect in the initial seats that were there, and we had actually redesigned. Our staff actually redesigned a seat and had it remolded, and we partnered with through the Department of Stadia and Parking, partnered with Reentry as the labor force to install those seats, which worked out really well, as Vice President Reese said, for both the county from a cost perspective as well as the job training. It got the people who were there, and we actually have since then used that seat and marketed that same seat to other stadiums throughout the country as well. So it was a really successful project from soup to nuts.
Mm-hmm. Great, sounds good. And you reminded me about back to Deanna once again. At that same fair I was at, people had a list of companies you should go to as an ex-offender to try to get a job. And there was, I don't know, maybe 40 different agencies, and she said, tear that list up, because they should not be, every company should have an open door policy, and it shouldn't, you have to not go to McDonald's, but you can go to Burger King, and so they are not supposed to be, redlining you and saying they can't hire you. So anyway, okay, well, we're moving forward, and we're going to do more. So thank you all. And I see Charles. I've been knowing Charles for about we were at Mill Creek Psychiatric Center when we were like 20 years old. Hi, Charles. Good to see you. Yeah. You're muted, but I know you had some wise words. Okay. That's okay. We'll keep him muted. It might be best. So, okay. Thank you all so much.
How am I now? Am I still muted?
I hear you now.
Okay. But and going back to that point, Madam President, as you well know, mental health is a big proponent of the issues that a lot of the returning citizens have. Even before going in, when they come out, they still have those issues. So if we can implement some of those things, which we have with some other agencies to enhance those that need that service.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay, thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that is the end of our agenda. I will ask Vice President Reese if you have any additional comments you'd like to make before we close.
No additional comments.
Okay, thank you so much. So at that point, I will make a motion to adjourn our staff meeting.
Second.
Commissioner Summer Dumas,
Yes.
Commissioner Reese.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.